So hello everybody, I'm here today in Portugal with Peter Brampton from the Awakened Life Project, and I really thought it'd be good to share Peter's wisdom with everyone, so here we are.
Thank
Peter.
you, Fiona. Good to have you here.
Thank you. So would you like to say what the Awakened Life Project is?
What the Awakened Life Project is? Well, it's a project that I co-founded with my wife about 8 years ago now, and it really came out of a shared vision that we had to create a project, a place that would be a beacon for the new world that we all, many of us, feel is possible. So a beacon for the evolution of consciousness, and also for a place where people could come and learn to relate with each other in a very new way, in a way that's based on our true nature as one consciousness. And also another dimension of what we're doing and living here is obviously we're living in a beautiful place in nature, so we're endeavouring to live as sustainably and as in harmony with the natural environment as possible. So it was really those were the elements that we were inspired to manifest through our vision. And the reason we ended up calling it the Awakened Life Project was that's a term, awaken life, that really embraces all of the different aspects of what we're doing here.
Great. So for the people at home that don't understand some of the terms you've used, can you say more about what the new world is and what evolutionary consciousness is?
Yeah. So, well, also maybe I can start by saying what my understanding of awakened life is.
Yeah, great.
So most people are just busy making a living.
Yeah.
As opposed to really living their life.
Yeah.
So what we mean, and what I mean by awakened life is when one awakens from the dream of isolation and separation, or from ego consciousness is another way to describe it. So what do I mean by ego consciousness? It's the conviction that who I am and who you are, who we all are, is we're fundamentally separate, and who I am is the sum of my my thoughts, my memories, and my emotions, basically my whole psychological world, and obviously this body that was born at a certain time. That's basically who I am, and who you are is the same thing that applies to you. And this is kind of the accepted norm. People. That's kind of how many people perceive who they are. But it's not true. It's actually like literally like a dream.
Yeah.
And of course, it's the source of pretty much all of our suffering.
Yes.
Is a result of our mistaken identity as separate, isolated individuals. So the awakening I'm talking about, and what awakened life means, is when we suddenly or gradually, and it happens in all kinds of different ways for all different people, for different reasons, but it's when we suddenly or gradually begin to awaken to the truth, which basically means that we actually see, feel, realise, oh my God, I've never been separate.
Sure.
Who I am as consciousness, you could say, or as being, as an expression of life. Well, obviously, it's localized in this apparent body here, and I have my mind and my emotions and my historical experience, and you have yours. And that's all relatively true. But we actually see, experience, and recognise that the deeper truth of who we all are is one one life, one consciousness, one intelligence. And when one begins to see and realise that potentially everything changes. It's the change, it's the shift that has the potential to change everything. So not only our understanding of who we are, that's very big, obviously, because suddenly it's like, well, because obviously what one begins to see when one awakens to oneself as life or as consciousness, is that, well, I am not my mind, fundamentally.
Absolutely.
I am not my emotions, I am not my conditioning. These things are part of me, they occur, they arise, they pass away, but I am not a prisoner of my mind and emotions. And then, so of course the whole new potential for discovering who we are and for living who we are, and actually for creatively engaging with the life process begins to open up, and we free ourselves. So this is usually a gradual process. We free ourselves from all the limiting, constricting ideas and beliefs that keep us separate and keep us stuck.
Sure.
So that's one dimension. But then the other, I think, even more exciting dimension is when two or more people who are awakening to this truth come together in that recognition that there you are and here I am. So there's many, or there's apparently two, but ultimately on the deepest level there's only one of us here.
Sure.
So then that opens up a whole new potential order of human relationship, where we can actually begin to see, feel and recognise, to whatever degree, that no matter how it seems, in terms of, I'm very different from you, you're over there, I'm over here, we actually begin to awaken to the truth that actually, no, that's not actually true. And then from that place we can begin to, well, a lot of things, from that place obviously we can begin to explore and potentially come together in a degree of trust and transparency and intimacy which would ordinarily not be possible, or you might only experience to some degree with your romantic or sexual partner.
Yeah.
That's often what people are looking for in the romantic sexual relationship, is that kind of to relieve themselves from the pain of separation. But what if you could actually experience that with many people, without necessarily having to be romantically or sexually involved with them? That's
good news.
Yeah, that's very good news, and that's the potential for a new order of relationship and a new world. And then of course what we as human beings can actually do together, what we can create, comes out of that, comes out of the shared values that would make up the fabric of our relationships.
Do you mind if I summarise and maybe use some of the terms that my audience are familiar with?
Sure.
So I'll have a go at that, and you can tell me if I have it correct or not. So what I often refer to as the story, our history, our thoughts about ourselves, our thoughts about the world, our emotions about ourselves, the world, our families, our conditioning, and a lot of people get stuck in that, and it's just it's a record that they play about themselves, and they continue to play about themselves. And in other words, for the story or the record is the ego, it's the attachment to that which is separate, the part of us that believes it needs to protect us. And that is very evident in a lot of cultures as well. But that's all about separation, me and mine, and yours and theirs. So what you're proposing, and what I very much propose as well, is that the opposite of that is the truth, the fact that we are all one, And what that means when we are all one is that there's a space when we're not identified with the story, there's a space inside of us but also outside of us that creates a different relationship with ourselves, with life, with each other.
Absolutely.
And then that is the pureness, that is that's the awakened part. That's when life can really
exactly
come out and be joyful.
Yeah.
And I noticed when you were talking about it and you got to this point, you had a big smile on your face, and so do I.
Yeah.
That's how it is. That's the reality of it.
It's a big yes.
We get
it, when we recognise who we are, who we really are, as life itself, as consciousness itself, it's utterly good.
Yeah.
There's a big yes. And so that's a big part of why it's so liberating, because we actually, despite all the chaos, cruelty and injustice and madness that is in our world and that the human condition expresses, we discover a faith and conviction in that fundamental goodness of life.
Yeah, because in my experience, the deepest suffering I've had in my life is the story I've told myself about the pain. If I could just notice the pain and allow that to be until it ceases, then that's fine. Pain is a part of life.
Right.
But it's the story I tell myself in that moment, in the next moment, and maybe for the next 10 years that really creates the suffering.
That feeds it,
Yeah. And that's just getting into ego, identity and story.
Yeah, so, well, I totally agree with you.
Well, and I totally agree with you. No, it's all good. So, but the interesting concept to me, and the reason why I'm here, is the fact that a group of people are coming together to experience that together. Like that's the thing that when I read your website, I was like, I totally feel in congruence with this. I totally believe in it. TheAwakenedLife.com.
AwakenedLifeProject.org.
Ah, sorry, that one. And I really resonated with it. But it's the coming together of the people which was the exciting thing for me. My body was just like, yes.
Yeah.
And I wrote an email straight away.
So you want me to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting for people, and what it means to be in relation with somebody that's on the same path with the same like motivation, for the want of a different word. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people these days are craving for this, So and what you just shared isn't unusual. That's a lot of the people who come here or read our vision.
Yeah.
If obviously people are already awake to this to whatever degree, but there's some kind of recognition, like, yes, this is not only what I want, but this is what is needed. This is what the evolution of consciousness is pointing in this direction. That we have to find a way to come together. And I think it's really, really important, because for many of us, the spiritual journey, let's say, is often a very solitary and can be quite a lonely endeavour.
Yeah.
And there are reasons for that, because if you're surrounded by family and friends who don't really resonate with your awakening, you can feel very lonely. And I think most of us who've responded to this call of awakening, sometime or another we felt that. Suddenly you realise, wow, I'm an outsider. I can't really go along with the story. Both my personal story, whatever that was and is, but I can't really go along with the cultural values and stories that everybody's going along with for the most part. So I think we're living in a time now where it doesn't make sense anymore to only pursue spiritual awakening or evolution, whatever word you want to use, in a solitary context. I think maybe that was made more sense, in further back historically. But we're so connected now. We're so globally connected, and also, as we all know, we're living in a time of global crisis. And I think it's becoming clearer to more and more of us that humanity is at a crossroads, and we're in an evolutionary crisis. That's what the crisis is really all about. It's not really about the environment or the financial systems. All the crises that we're facing are symptoms of a crisis of consciousness. The crises that we are facing have been created by ego consciousness, by that attachment to me and mine, and all the fear that drives that, and then on top of that, all of the desire and the aggression that holds that all together. So the world,
could I just briefly say something? Yeah. So what I hear Peter saying is that it's the ego part of us, it's the part that feels that we're separate, and it's the part that identifies with being separate, which in some ways, I'm not sure if you'd say this is true, definitely feeds the fear that maybe even produces it in the first place.
The fear of what?
Just the fear of life and your protection and keeping ourselves closed rather than open.
Well, I would say it's the other way around, because fear is the primal flavour of the ego. So what is the ego?
Sure.
The ego is we can think of it as a contraction. It's a contraction. So at the core of that contraction is fear.
Yeah.
And we might not be in touch with that fear most of the time, but very few people are fundamentally and deeply at ease at a very, very deep level, with who they are and with life itself. So whether it's manifesting on just a very, you could say, more subtle sense of anxiety to paranoia, fear is really the basis of the ego. And of course, we've created a world, we meaning humanity, that is an expression of that fear. And so it's the world that we've created and that we find ourselves in the midst of is an externalization of the state of human consciousness.
Yes.
The outer mirrors the inner. So I think more and more of us are feeling this, recognizing this, and so for more and more of us to just discover some degree of fundamental well-being and even spiritual liberation for ourselves isn't enough anymore, because it's not enough just to be free in the dream, so to speak. Okay, well, I can see through this or I can see through that, and so I mean that's important.
Yeah.
But I think for more and more people these days, there's the yearning and the recognition that we need to create a new world. We need to actually be a part of the solution. And so becoming more and more cognizant of all the problems out there and all the insanity of what's going on. That's one thing, but if we're really going to be, if we're really going to respond to this evolutionary crisis in a way that takes full responsibility, we need to demonstrate a higher possibility, and this is where relationship comes in, and obviously it implies being interested in coming together with other people who share that same passion. And I call it a passion. It's a passion for evolution. I call it evolutionary love. It's a passion for what's possible, what does not exist yet.
Yes.
It's a little different from what most people think of when they hear the word unconditional love, for example, because that's a very popular concept, you could say, in spiritual circles. Spiritual life is, we just love everything and everyone unconditionally, which is absolutely important. That's I'm not diminishing the importance of that, but often if we just put the emphasis too much on just living in peace and harmony with ourselves, with other people. That's not necessarily going to lead to some fundamental transformation.
Sure.
You see, so why I call it evolutionary love is you potentially you start to experience this deep trust and unity and transparency with other people, and in that obviously there's an experience of joy and happiness and wow, because it's a beautiful thing to be with people you can trust very deeply. But at the same time, there's this passion for where can we go together? What can we create? What's actually possible for human beings? And that's very exciting. There's something very dynamic about that, and it puts us on the edge of our understanding.
Sure.
And I really feel that's the spirituality of our time, and will become more and more so in the future.